So I ran 163 flops for a small blind 3-bet versus button, and we're going to be playing against a solver. You will see a lot of information on your screen. The top left will be the table where I'm playing. The bottom left is the equity graph. Top right, most right is basically the hands we played, filtered by the most recent. And next to that, to the left, is the information from Flopzilla, how our range basically connects on this. On the bottom right, you can actually see our range. For some reason, it is showing something extra that it shouldn't. It's because I have it open. And then in the middle, you have the equity, which, the equity graphs is enough, but there was room there, so I just added it. And then you have the webcam. Yeah, great. We'll be playing some hands, and I'll go through my thought process, and we'll be doing this as often as we can, or as long as we can. So on this type of board, it should definitely favor us. You can see this by the equity as well. We do want the check range though. Our jacks and so on don't really like betting here. They need some protection, so ace-5, the weaker races. We have a backdoor flush draw as well. Definitely fits in that range. We're not really c-betting small, I think. I think the main line is going to be check, and we're going to be betting big sometimes. Yeah, so check it is. On the 6, it doesn't really change anything. The fact that he checks back means he has some kind of showdown. We still want to have a checking range. There's no need to turn ace-5 into a bluff here. I think the main line is still checking, and that's what I'm gonna do. If we are gonna bet, I'm not sure which sizing would be used most often with our checking range. I guess if we want to bluff, we want to bet big, because he is basically saying he has showdown when he checks back, and he's not just gonna fold to a small bet. So we'll go for a check here. And then on the river, check is kind of annoying. King Jack gets there, King 10 gets there, although they are usually bluffed sometimes. We definitely have some Jack X. All the draws missed. I think we just check this hand as well and want him to, try to bluff us, and then we can check call. This hand should definitely fit in there. We can go for some team value as well and go for a small sizing, but I'm going to check here. Apparently I should go for small sizing, so this is definitely a mistake on my end. And he showed us 9, so yeah. This type of board, again, I'm going to have a decent checking range, so I'm going to usually bet big here. I'm gonna go with a check with his hand and probably check folds. When he checks back and we actually turn an open-ender, the question is, do we want to bluff with this or not? Do we really have many 9x that are worse? Jack 9, it gets there. King 9 is the only 9x that is actually worse for us to have. Now on a jack river, we do get there with ace king type hands. That would already be in our checking range. Do we get better hands to fold one street? Probably not. We do block ace 9x. He's not gonna fold jack x. I think my line here in general would be check fold, but I would estimate that the solver is actually betting this at a decent amount, and probably for the 15.15. Yeah. Then I'll do so far, it doesn't really change anything. If we were ahead, we were ahead. But I actually don't mind bluffing this. We don't really have any showdown. It's really hard for button to have a worse hand that is, checking back here. I think we want to bluff with this hand. It is pretty low in our range on this river, and I think I want to go for 15.15. Apparently it prefers a check, and he calls us with an 8. We flop top 2, so we can go for a check raise or we can go for a big bet, and I'm gonna go for a big bet. Queen Jack on Ace 5-5. Now an ace in general is pretty good for us. As you can see, we actually hit top pair quite often, 31%. We do have a bunch of no-mate hands and lower pockets as well. But the lower pockets generally tend to want to bet as well. I think we're gonna be betting quite small really often. Queen Jack doesn't really fit in there, I think. It does have some showdown. It has backdoors though, with the Jack of Spades. I think I would prefer going with a big size in here, and I'm gonna do that. Yep. Ace 10, so we flop top pair, backdoor flush draw. I think this hand is too good to have in a check back range. We can definitely protect with weaker 10x. If we want to, we have 10s in our check back range. You know, we can call some ace x high. Ace of hearts having is pretty good as well. The question, of course, is here: do we want to bet big? Do we want to bet small? I think with a hand as strong as ace 10 with ace of hearts, we want to bet big. Jack 9, we have a bunch of backdoors, basically not really a lot of showdown. We definitely want to be bluffing with his hand. Given the flop and that we don't really block, you know, king high, queen high hands, they're gonna fold here. I think we want to go for a small sizing. On a 7, we get an open ender. But the card in general isn't really that great for our range compared to Button's range. When a board gets disconnected with like these middling cards, they generally are better for Button. Yeah, for the 3-bet caller, in this case Button. So we are gonna check a really big amount and probably go for a check raise, some frequency. With the clubs, I'm not really sure. I think we start with a check and see where we end up there. Yep. And he shakes back. Now when a 4 comes, it's still a pretty bad card for us, but this hand really has a showdown, right? We have to bluff this, and in that case I'm gonna go with the bet it. And apparently it's minus AV, but I'm still gonna bet, and he calls us with an 8. This board is just insane for us. I don't really think we have a check and range here. We do want to have like a big bet and a small bet here as well. In general, you know, we're doing a 2-sided strategy, so we're gonna practice 2-sided strategy. Given that 10s are pretty, you know, weaker and does want to fold like a bunch of overcards out, it can stand some heat. Like him raising here doesn't really make much sense, and I'm gonna go for a big bet size. On a deuce, ace 5 gets there, but that's about it. I still think we have the advantage, and you know, we do want to start having a checking range here. 10s though, I mean, they're too weak to just put in the checking range. If we want to protect our checking range with overpairs, don't do it with 10s. 10 of diamonds might make a difference. The question, of course, is do we bet 25 or do we bet 75? I think 25 is gonna do enough. We basically want him to fold like the floats with overcards that he has. Ace X, like for example, still has decent equity here. It can hit 7 out. All in isn't really gonna accomplish what we want, although it might be better. I'm gonna go for a small sizing here. And then on the 10 river, I mean, we're just jamming, right? We get a full house. There's no way we're folding this. Yeah, all in it is. And he folds. Ace King, again on this board, we don't really have much of a checking range. You can put Ace King in a check call range, but I mean, you can just simplify and never have a check range. That Householder really has one here. As you can see, there's still a lot of air, but like it's gonna be the same for the other person's range. I can show you if you want. Yeah, so no mate hand is 48% for the other guy. So I think Ace King will just do fine in a small bet. It actually likes big betting. That's interesting. So it is mixing, but it is going for a big bet most often. We did say we were going for a small bet. Then on a 10, again, once we already accomplish our initial bet and fall out a bunch of air, we do create a decent checking range and are going to polarize. I think Ace King, you know, doesn't really want to bet here. does it really fold out better? Does it really accomplish much? Just get called by worse? Probably not, so I would go for a check here. When he bets, Ace King probably is still quite high in our range. He's gonna have a decent amount of bluffs. We don't block clubs. I think we definitely have to call for one more street and see where we end up. And then on the Ace River, we actually can dunk this. The Ace is pretty good card for us. Ace King definitely should fit in there. And I think we just have dunking range here. Not that much, but I like having Ace King in it, and I'm gonna dunk it. It's actually minus EV, so that's interesting. I was gonna dunk it, so 6-5 on this board. We are gonna have a bunch of error, and we are gonna have a pretty big checking range. And 6-5, you know, it's really low. It doesn't really block a bunch of hands that he can fold. It has a bunch of backdoors, and I actually think we like having a big size with it. It's no shame check folding this, but I think we want to bluff with it at a big size. So yeah, it just mixes, but I prefer check, but I'm going to go for a big size. We do get called and the Queen of Spades comes. Now, Queen of Spades makes the board more connected. We definitely have Kings, Queens, and Jacks more often than he does. Well, he doesn't really have them. Nope, he doesn't really have them. So I definitely think we should go for an all-in here. Just put pressure on him. We do have outs. Maybe all-in isn't really that great with this, but I mean, we're polarizing. We have the spades. I'm going to go with the all-in. It actually likes a small bet, so minus EV again. So here, these type of boards, very disconnected. We do still want to check in range because we do have a bunch of air and eights, you know. Eights, I think, don't really want to bet that often. What often happens with these pocket pairs is that the higher up you go below a card on the board. So let's say queens, for example, bets less often than, for example, tens, because tens have more hands that can connect like overcards against them. Now eights obviously has the same amount of overcards, but it's more likely that the other guy has nine, so or 9x and calls us with 9x. We're not really blocking hands that he's gonna call us with, so I mean we're probably falling out worse and getting called by better or decent equity. So in general, it does want to check here. Yep. On a 3, after a check back, I think we do want to start betting this hand. It doesn't really make much sense to keep on checking it. Although maybe, I mean, he's saying he has a hand that he wants to give up. And maybe betting doesn't really accomplish much. If I think about the sizes in my range, I don't really think I want to use a small sizing on these turns. It doesn't really make much sense to do so because I'm not betting often. So I would want to go for bigger sizings, and 8 doesn't really fit in there, so I think it's just going to be a check. Yep. On a 7, I mean, same logic. We don't really block clubs. We want this guy to bluff at us with a single club, and we're going to go for a check with a call. And he has 5, so yeah. 9s here. This is actually a totally different board because we're not really going to be checking all that often here. 9s probably profits from a small bet quite often because it follows so many overcards. It can even get called by worse hands, so I'm going to go for a small bet. Ace King, this type of board definitely does not look good for us. 10, 9, 7 in general, better for a 3-bet caller. As you can see, our equity is only 51%, so we want to polarize, so we're going to go for a big bet size and never for a small bet. Where does Ace King fit in there with the Ace of Clubs? I think our hand is just a bit too good to turn into a bluff yet, so it's going to go for a check call and not betting big. But I mean, you can mix this in, it seems fine. It actually prefers betting big. On a 9, it doesn't really change anything. Obviously, the both players have a bunch of 9s here, but like these middling cards still not that great for us. It reduces our 9x combos. Our raise of clubs now is pretty worthless. We can still bluff with this for 15-15. We can... Do we have an overbet range here? Probably not. Doesn't really make much sense to have an overbet range. He's not uncapped. And what are we really representing here, right? I think I want to stake ace king to showdown and we'll check it. It actually prefers a big bet again. So it actually wants to turn this hand into a bluff. Jack, really bad card for us. I mean, this board is so connected and we have no piece of it. Is ace king ever good here? That's a good question. How do we bluff with this though? Like, what do we beat? We beat ace queen. That's about it, right? So if you want to bluff with this, we have to bet big. We're not really blocking his weaker pairs in some way, so I think we want to bet big. Yep. And he calls us with a 7, which is completely fine. 9-8 on this type of board. It is better than 8s on a similar board to bet, because when we do get called and we are behind, we have more outs. And, you know, hitting an 8 is pretty good because it doesn't really improve his hands when we have a hand like 9-8. Plus it does fill out some equity. So I'm leaning towards a small bet with his hand. But I can see why we would want to check this. The kicker is pretty weak. We have no backdoors. I'm going to go with a check. It actually likes a big bet again. I guess it wants to apply more pressure on their gutshot hands. So we went with a check. When he bets, we have to call. There's no point in raising here. He can definitely be bluffing. There's no point in folding. We have a pair. An ace is, again, okay for us, but when we check call here, we don't really have that many ace-x, I think, outside of ace-x clubs. Like gutshots are pretty better. Ace-9 gets a bit worse. I think we check this hand still and gonna go for a fold. He checks back, so he's saying he has like a king and he's scared of the ace. He can have gutshot and a bluff on the flop that he's gonna give up. So our check value is not 0. So we're gonna check and see what he does. When he bets, he can definitely do this with the king. He can do this with gutshots. We don't really block gutshots. Let's see, he has a bunch of kings. So we don't block king X, but we don't block his bluffs either. Do we need to bluff catch this? I think we do. I'm gonna go with the call. Yeah, king is fine. Aces on this type of board in general is gonna be a check. It's definitely gonna mix between a small bet and a check. The reason you do not bet big with aces, although it is gonna do that some frequency, but the reason is just blockers. His main call range is gonna be ace-x. We're blocking ace-x. When we bet big, we are blocking ace-x so hard that, you know, you just want to be checking this or betting small. And I'm gonna go with a check first. Oh, it actually never bets. When he checks back, he's saying he has some showdown or doesn't want to bluff. We're definitely still not going for the bigger bet sizing, so we're gonna go with a small bet size or a check. And I still think aces, you know, we do want to gain some value, but I don't think that deuce really connects with his range like his air end, so I still think we go for a check. When he then overbets, I mean, we have an easy call. He's polarized, and we don't really want to, you know, we're blocking like his value range, and we're unblocking his bluffs. So we definitely want him to bluff on the river again. So we're just gonna call. And then on this river, we definitely check. I mean, if he has a flush, he has a flush. That's great for us. he jams all in, and I mean, there's no way we don't call, right? And he has an error, so that's the reason why you would just check, and because people will be turning these type of, or solver will be turning these type of hands into bluff. Ace 10, again, we're gonna have a decent checking range. Ace 10 might be too good to turn into bluff. When called, it doesn't really have great equity. It is gonna go into a checking range. When he bets into us this small, I don't think Ace 10 is good enough to call. We do have backdoors though, with a queen and a jack, and an 8 and a 7. So maybe this is a call against his sizing. I'm gonna go with a fold. Like, I err on the side where I would lose less here. So I'm just gonna go with a fold. Yeah. Ace queen, this type of board, again, we're gonna have this in checking range. Ace queen seems too good to turn into a bluff. We don't really have backdoors here. Although on a jack and a king, there are some possibilities. We do block some of his bluffing range. But I'm gonna go for a check. And again, it likes betting big. So these ace king, ace queen type hands on this type of board so far like betting big. We can actually have a random RNG as well, which is pretty cool. I didn't even notice that. When he bets this, I think ace queen is too good to fold though. We definitely have a bunch of other rare hands. Although, I mean, no really good backdoors. Maybe king queen is better, for example. We have to call some ace queen, and this one with no backdoors might be a fold. So yeah, it just mixes, and I'm gonna fold it. King queen, this type of board, we're already gonna have a decent betting range, so I'm definitely gonna be betting this hand. The question, of course, is do I want to bet big, do I want to bet small? I think we definitely want to bet big. We do have a lot of equity in the hand, so yeah, let's just bet big. I actually think we go for an overbet here. I actually like this card. This card in general tends to allow us to overbet quite often. This hand definitely goes into that range. We can push him off some pairs. We can push him off some ace X that he floated. He's gonna have a hard time calling us with his draws. So yeah, go for an overbet here. It's actually the worst option. That's interesting. So yeah, I chose all in, and he calls us with 9. I guess one of the reasons is that we don't really block 9x, like his suited 9x. Even instead we had like king 9 of clubs. Can I go back to this here? So we went for big bets. He called, turn is a deuce. What goes into a overbet range? Oh wait, my bad. Can you guys see this? Well, somewhat. Yeah, this will have to do. So what goes into a overbet range here? So overpairs the weaker ones because they want more protection. Never like a set, which makes sense, like full house. We don't actually have that in this sizing, which makes sense as well. Strong 9x or 9x in general, and then some flush draws with ace 10, but never king queen. It prefers a small bet. Okay, so lesson learned here. Again, this board we want to be c-betting quite often. Where do we see king 10? I think it's in this big bet. We just want to put pressure on his range. We don't really have a showdown hand, so we want to bet big. When he calls us and this is the turn, it definitely favors him, and we're just going to be checking so often here. I don't really like this hand in like one of the two sizings. The small sizing, like he's still going to call with a bunch of hands. The big sizing, this has no equity whatsoever. Maybe that's a reason to put it in there, but I hate it. I think this is just a check fold. When he checks back and the river is an ace, it is somewhat... Like, it's a good card to bluff on in practice. I still think in theory, given that we went big bet and then, you know, check. He's still gonna have a decent amount of ace-x in his range, because he's gonna call us on the flop with a bunch of ace-x, and then he's gonna just check it on the turn, so he has a bunch of ace-x as well. King 10, I mean, ace 10 blocking, he, like, the diamond blocker doesn't really help us, because ace 10 suited, he would fold that combo probably on the flop, because it doesn't have hearts or like a club. And then the king blocker doesn't help us at all, so I think this is just check fold again. And he has threes. This type of board, we do want a small bet and a big bet. Ace king definitely can go into a big bet, so I'm gonna go for a big bet. On the 4 again, this board becomes more connected, but it's so low that it doesn't really matter that much. 2 flushes in there makes us generally want to go for big bets as well. Ace king, you know, can just be an all-in. It can be a small bet, it can be a check, it can be anything. But I'm gonna go for an all-in. Oh, apparently ace king is always an all-in. My bad. DV, I mean, you can look at this and be like, okay, it doesn't really change much. But yeah, so all-in. This is a... Like, this board, you generally want to bet quite often. We do want a checking range. I think when we do have a checking range, we want to do it with the club draws that are 2 high cards, because it blocks a bunch of his higher clubs. But like these type of club draws generally do good with a bet, because he can have a bunch of weaker flush draws, right? So I'm gonna go for a small bet. Ace high board, we do have an ace with a decent kicker. We have some backdoors. In general, these boards, you know, when they're so disconnected and, well, not that disconnected, but like somewhat disconnected, rainbow, we generally go towards a small bet. An ace jack, you know, we can go towards a small bet. There's no need to polarize here. On a 10, the board gets a bit more connected, in generally in favor again for the button. I think we want to go for... I still like a bet here with ace jack. So it is actually quite a loss here. But I decided on a bet, so that's what I'm going to do. Suboptimal, huh? 10-8, pretty low in our range in general. Now, in theory, you would think very often, well, this, or in practice, very many people are going to be like, oh, this board is super good for us. I'm just going to bet range with 1/3 pot, and it's actually a big mistake. Like, what do you do with your hands that just aren't there, right? I think it's pretty easy for a button to call us and steal it on turns if you do a small bet, so I think we want to have a big bet and a checking range. 10-8, no backdoors whatsoever. I'm just going to check fold it. And now it's a fold. Yep. 10s on this board, I think we already went over a similar spot. We generally do have a betting range here. 10s wants a lot of protection, so we go for a bigger bet. On an 8, again, more connected, but we still have like over bet sizing just because there are still flush draws. We saw this in a few hands ago where I had the king queen, which you can still see on the bottom, the 5th hand. 10s, I still think is like an over bet. Yep. Ace 3, we want a chicken range here. It's very disconnected though, so here you can have a small bet size very often. We do want to protect our chicken range somewhat, and you know, no backdoors. We can check this. It actually likes a small bet, but I said I was going to check, so On a 10, again, a bit more connected, so we are going to have a decent amount of checks still when we checked. I still like ace-3 as a check, but this is probably going to be a bet, given that he wants to bet on the flop. So I'm going to bet this for small sizing. And now it's a check for some reason. Ace-10 again on this board. No real backdoors, no real good blockers. We're going to have a lot of checking range, and it just goes into a check. On a king, we can actually start bluffing a bunch, but is ace-10 really needed to bluff? We still beat a bunch of hands that he doesn't really want to bluff. I still think this goes into a chicken range. It actually does overbet sometimes. I guess a spade blocker does make sense. Let's go into the note itself and let's look at ace-10 off. Yep, it's the spade blocker that does it. As you can see to the left, it's basically betting with spades. This did say to check. Here, given that he bets and we have a spade blocker, we do have some outs. I don't think having the spade blocker here is that great because it blocks his bluffs. I still think this goes into a fold. Yep. Nines here, they do want some protection. We do have a small betting range of, like a betting range of a 1/3 pot. Now, is it getting called by worse? Sure, but the main point in betting this is like folding out a bunch of equity from him, so I'm going to go for a small bet. On another rate, this hand turns into a clear check. We're not really betting this card very often, to be honest. And yeah, I'm going to go with a check with nines. When he checks back and it's a heart, when there's the ace of hearts on the table, it generally isn't that great for us either. We still block some 8x. We don't block his bluffs. I still think we check. And we win against 7, so that's great. 5s with a gut shot. These boards, you know, we're going to be range splitting so hard into all 3 categories, I think. So it is a bit annoying. I'm gonna go with a small bet, or you can just go check on a small bet. So definitely not a mistake. On a 3, the question is, do we want to turn this hand to do a bluff or not? I think we can check this, but we still have so much equity when we do get called that I don't actually mind the bigger bet. Yeah, I'm gonna go for the bigger bet. So it's a loss, so it is a check. 10-8, we do have a checking range. It's middle pair. We kicker, so we do want to check. On a king, there's no point in, you know, suddenly start betting this hand, so we just want to check still. When he overbets here, we just have to fold this. Yep. Ace Queen, this type of board, it could go into a big sizing, I think. Previously it has done so. But I'm gonna put it into chicken range. Yep. When he bets this, again, we do have 2 overs. It's very disconnected. He has a bunch of bluffs here. I call this once. Yep. Queen, pretty good for us. There's no point in suddenly leading though. And I'm gonna check, and it does lead. On a 3, we're definitely gonna value bet this. We can get value from Jack X on pocket pairs. We do have a bunch of big straws. It does have a chicken range here, and he calls us with the worst queen. This type of board. Let me check Flopzilla actually. So we have a bunch of no-mate hands. We only have 51% equity. Not really a lot of top pair. Some over pairs. I guess we have a pretty big checking range then, just to protect our checking range. In which case, you know, 9 with a high kicker. It's gonna be a check because the other option is a big bet. When he bets into us, there's no point in folding. On an ace, pretty good card for us. I'm not gonna start leading though. And when he bets, I'm just gonna jam. And yeah, that's it. This type of board, sevens definitely profits from protection. We still have a bunch of advantage, like 54% apparently. So I'm gonna go for small bets. Ace Jack. I think these boards we generally want to go small bet or check. I think Ace Jack is a bit too good to go for a small bet, like it's just in between there. And I would check this. I would actually mix it with. One bet we're not folding this hands. Deuce of spades is definitely a check, and when he checks back, we're just getting this showdown. Yep. Fives. Again, this does profit from equity denial, so a small bet size actually does make sense here. When we have these lower pockets, the lower they go, the more they are inclined to bet. So I'm gonna bet this. The question is just, do I want to go with a big bet or a small bet? I don't really think I want to turn this into a bluff, so I'm just gonna go for a small bet for equity denial. Yep. 10, very connected board now, definitely in favor of the button. So I'm gonna start checking this. On a 6, again, more connected, just check and hope to get a showdown. And yeah. Ace 10, this type of board we do have small bet and a decent amount of checking. And I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna go with a check first with this hand. Yep. Oh, it actually does prefer betting, but it is mixing into options. And I'm gonna call it after this hand. When he bets, we have to call this. On a 10, on a 9, I'm definitely not leading. When he bets again, I'm just folding. Yeah. I'm gonna call it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you for the next one. And I'm looking forward to your comments.